Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of TalkFlow. This is episode 25, and as you can see today, we have a very special guest. We have Joe Krug from Finsweet. How you doing, Joe? Thank you very much for joining. We're going to be asking Joe a lot of questions, and yeah, Joe, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell the people a bit more about what you do for those that who are living under a rock and don't know.
Sure. Thank you very much for that intro. And thank you for having me. I've seen the show a few times, so it's nice to be here. I am Joe Krug, CEO and founder of Finsweet. Finsweet is a Webflow exclusive agency, product, and community company. We are totally into Webflow. We are obsessed with Webflow. And anytime that I can do something with Webflow, like this chat, like this event, I'm going to be here. So that's why I'm here talking.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I just want
the
to
thing is,
pinpoint something that you mentioned. You said company rather than agency, which that
Yeah.
kind of so what was the point in that? Why did you, because I think, remember, if I'm not mistaken, you used to say agency. So why did you switch to company?
We are now growing out of
Right.
being
Yeah.
only an agency. We still have a very strong agency presence. We love the agency side of our business, but now there's a lot more happening. There's things happening in product. There's things happening in the community. We do a lot with content. So I don't think it's fair to just call ourselves agency. Now this is one pillar of our company.
Makes sense.
nice. Yeah, so when we started this, we had a list of guests. I think Joe was number one, and we were let's save him for a special episode. So I think 25 is like a good milestone to bring Joe in.
Yeah. Like a
Nice.
quarter, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. So Joe, like with all our guests, we like to start off with asking a question. We asked the same question. Why don't you take yourself back to where it all started, your whole journey, as far back as you can remember, for example, high school or college. Did you come out of high school and you jumped into websites? Where did it all start?
Are you asking where did it all start to get into the web industry?
Yeah, before the web industry. Yeah.
Right before the web industry. Sure. I was working with a tech company, a company that had a mobile app, and I became very interested in the tech side of it. We had some problems with the app, some problems with our website, and I was always very curious as to why there were problems. And it got me into making websites. I slowly transitioned into helping the company with simple landing pages from WordPress. And I just got really interested in it. It was a perfect bridge to say, hey, I want to learn more about the web. I want to understand how I can do more with this web page or why something is not working.
Right. And this was after the sales job that he had, or was it the sales job that he had in the company?
It was the sales job. Yep.
Right.
It was the sales job, and that transitioned into this learning of the web.
Right. Yeah, that was our follow-up question was what part of the web were you intrigued by? Was it the design, or was it that you could build something?
At the time, it was design. It was being able to show a design on the page. And there was one thing that really bothered me in my sales position. We asked our developers to build a tool for us to help us log our sales. We didn't have a way to log the sale and have that sale updated on the app. So this was supposed to be this tool that helped us do our job better, and the tool didn't work. It actually made everybody's job more difficult because it wouldn't really add it. Sometimes it would kind of add it. It would add it wrong. And we had to say, hey, don't use this tool. And it was really frustrating because I spent a lot of time designing the tool, thinking of the logic of the tool, the experience of the tool, and it just didn't work. So after that, I wanted to understand, why does this not work? Everything looks like it should work. All the buttons are in the right place, but when you press submit, not the right thing happens. So that really started the curiosity.
Right. And so then you were working in the company as a developer, or was it like a side hustle? Right.
No,
So,
sales. I was the leader of the sales side of the company.
right. And then when
Right.
you left to create Finsweet, what was your feeling like? Were you, I can't imagine the stress that it might induce, but I might be wrong.
Well, the company ended up going out of business, so I didn't really leave the company. It was kind of like, hey, there's no more money left. There's no more clear opportunity. Everybody go home.
Right.
So
Right.
I always thought of Finsweet as a side business, a business just to get started. I'm no longer working with this company. I want to do something immediately. I have some light experience with this website stuff. Let me continue to explore this while I figure out what I want to do.
Right. So it was
Right.
sort of like a bridge
Yes. Yeah.
before you get your next job.
Yeah.
And then this clearly worked out better than expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
before, I want to know, like, when you started Finsweet, you mentioned that it was just a way for you to kind of understand what you really wanted. So what was like the short-term goals when you started Finsweet? Was it to make money? Was it to, as you said, like find out what you really enjoyed and what you're passionate about? And how did that goal change as you progressed with Finsweet?
Both to make money, to start earning money from websites as soon as possible. And yeah, also because I was curious about them. I had done a couple of really simple landing pages, like I said, and they were cool. They were simple but they worked and everybody liked them and it served its purpose. So I knew I had a little bit of skill in it, but I wanted to know how much of that skill I could accumulate.
Right. So when you, in the early stages of Finsweet, when it was going well, were you still considering to sort of drop it and find a job, or like because it was going well, you just wanted to continue?
A little bit. In the very early stages, I was considering to still go and get a job and work somewhere in New York City,
Right.
and ended up not doing that. There was actually one job that I applied to that made me say, fuck this. This whole thing is done. I am no longer applying anywhere else. And it was to Venmo.
Right.
My favorite peer-to-peer payment application in the US.
Yeah.
And they have an office in New York City. And they had a position listed, I believe, for head of customer support. And in my sales position, we did a lot with customer support. We were the sales team, but also supporting anybody that had a problem. So I thought that I could really do a great job here. So I applied for that job, and I spent like 2 weeks making a website to explain why I should get this position. So I was still building websites. I still wanted to learn this, but let me put 100% into this resume. I had my resume, and then, hey, this is a passionate request to join your company. I sent it in. They came back and they said, sorry, this position was listed incorrectly. It's in Chicago. Come on. That really, really got me mad. It was just,
I can imagine.
I spent hours and hours trying to really set myself up for this position. And it's okay if I was rejected,
Right.
but it's not okay that I wasted my time because it was listed incorrectly, and there's no way I'm going to Chicago. So after that happened, and I said, I am done. I'm never applying to another job again. I'm not wasting my time. So I went 100% on Finsweet.
Okay. Did you at least use that website as a portfolio piece, maybe in your beginning days, maybe?
Yeah, it was practice. I practiced with whatever resource, whatever use case that I could think of. So yeah, it was fun, but took a long time.
And was this all pre-Webflow?
You know what? I don't remember if I had if I was on Webflow yet. I honestly do not know. I can't remember.
Right. And
So,
yeah. Go on.
Yes, I was going to say, like, how did that transition happen to Webflow? Because I think you were on WordPress right before. So
Yes.
how did you transition?
When I found Webflow, I knew that Webflow was going to be the official platform.
And which year
Finsweet.
was this, by the way? Like, if you...
I don't know. You know what? I always go to my Webflow profile to see the join by date whenever I'm
Oh,
asked
right,
that
that's
question.
true. Yeah,
So I don't
Oh,
know,
yeah.
but the join by date, that's my official starting date.
I'm curious
Right.
now.
I got onto Webflow. I started making the site, and I knew instantly this is the platform for Finsweet. I didn't know what
Mhm.
Finsweet was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be my full-time, long-term position, if it was still going to be more temporary, but I knew I was going to continue doing Finsweet. And I made
Mhm.
that decision going in Webflow. This is the platform. We're not going back on WordPress.
Mhm. You know, that's a little bit quite unorthodox because you know, just like every other business, everyone has like a business plan and they already know like their vision and you know what they're going to do. But in your case, it was quite like, you know, you use every decision you made in your business. For example, you said that you don't know what it's going to be. It was all intrinsic, right? And even I heard, Joe, that you don't really have a routine like in your day. For example, like you, if you don't feel like working, you don't, and if you do feel like working, you do work. So
Mhm.
what kind of was it kind of scary like jumping into this whole thing without a plan, or did you always know it was going to work out in the end?
It was not scary to jump in without a plan. I have always been very comfortable in a business setting and in just in businesses in general. I was doing this for a long time and I've started businesses, I've stopped businesses, I've succeeded in businesses, I failed in businesses. This was very normal to me and this didn't feel like a risk at all. It just felt like a normal progression. So no, there was no this is just something about me. I don't get nervous about something like that.
Ah, I see. That I didn't know. I
Right.
thought, yeah. Okay.
You
Yeah,
know,
that
because so
puts it. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like very intentional every step, but it seems like that wasn't
No,
really the case, was it?
no, I don't know if there's ever been intentional at every step at Finsweet where we act in real time. I'm not thinking really directly past 3 months from now, 3 or 4 months. You know, maybe there's some longer term goals, but there's no real
Fixation. Right.
there's no what am I looking for? There's no specific rules
N-
that I'm
Right.
following. We need this many clients. We're going to do this next year.
Mm,
I'm not following those
KPIs.
things. Yeah, none of that. We're not following that very closely. It's, hey, what can we do in the next two to 3 months to make a huge impact?
Mhm.
And I feel like we've been following that a lot, even since the very beginning.
Yeah. And do you think that's played a role in the success of Finsweet?
I do. Sure. Yes, because we're just always flexible. We're ready to change, make moves. Yeah.
Cool. And
Cool.
I remember Hello Bonsai. Hello Bonsai. I keep saying Hello Bonsai. It's Hello Sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hello Sign was like the flagship project for Finsweet. Was
Yes.
it when you were doing all of it by yourself, or did you already have a small team that you were sort of working with?
That was all me.
Right.
That was all
Mhm.
me in the beginning. We during that time of working with HelloSign, I brought on the first JavaScript developer,
Right.
and this JavaScript developer helped me a lot as the relationship with HelloSign progressed. When it was the first relationship with HelloSign, it was no JavaScript, super simple marketing page. We launched like a 15-page website, and that was their primary marketing site. This
Right.
was also earlier in HelloSign's career. Now HelloSign is
Mhm.
much larger, acquired by Dropbox, even larger. So this was early for them. There were no deep technical
Mm,
requirements. But as they started growing, there were more requirements and more requirements. So this JavaScript developer really helped. It helped Finsweet support them in any way they wanted. If they wanted something, we were able to do it. So that was a really important step in Finsweet as a whole, and also inside that relationship.
Yeah, because I think I had a question with like, was your first hire out of necessity, or was it like a calculated decision to sort of to grow a team? But I think that sort of answers the question.
Yeah, that it was calculated. Need a design, need a JavaScript.
Right. So it's out of a mix of both, where it's also calculated, but also out of need, where you need some help.
Yeah, and this was not part of the original plan. Originally, Finsweet was just going to be me. I didn't really plan to grow a team around this, but I'm sitting here right now. I need somebody, so I'm going to go and contact somebody. Plans changed. So that's how it's, always thinking of the next step based on what you need right now and how you can make that impact quickly.
So when you say by it being just you, as in just like a freelancer, or like just a
exactly.
Right.
But then, did you already have the name Finsweet, or were you just going by Joe as like
No,
a freelancer?
Finsweet. Yeah,
okay,
Finsweet.
so it's okay. That's never.
It passed my mind. Maybe somebody works with me. Maybe there's a partner. Maybe there's a freelancer. But I didn't start the company thinking, all right, Finsweet is going to be a team of people.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, hey, let me operate under this cool name.
Do you remember how you got the name?
Yeah, I just wanted a cool name that had a hidden meaning. And the hidden meaning, I don't know why, but it was important to me at that time. So I came up with a bunch of options, and Finsweet, I said it, and I said, that's it. This is great.
Yeah, because I always wondered,
it does sound cool.
Yeah, it's like, how do you name something? It's always like the toughest thing, but and there's like a lot of iteration that you can do. It's like Finsweet, Fin. Yeah, quite jealous of the name.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah, Joe, I wanted to go back to your talk a little bit more about your HelloSign project. So I'm curious, like, during that time, I'm guessing that HelloSign was quite like a large company in your eyes, right? So then, how did I'm curious in knowing how you sold them the idea to work with you as a one-man band.
I gave them a lot of great information about their current site, about how that site is going to translate into Webflow, around what we can do in Webflow to achieve some of their goals. And I spent hours pitching them, spent hours rewriting emails to send them the perfect email explaining exactly how I can provide value to them. And they liked me. They had a lot of candidates. They came to me, and I got the project.
Right. And after you completed that project, there's a whole thing. I remember you said that landed you more projects. I'm curious in knowing how exactly did you leverage HelloSign after you delivered on that project?
Put those screenshots all over the portfolio and talked about it in every single sales call.
Right.
I mean, it got to the point where I was almost leading with that. Because a lot of times when you're early in your career, what you have to do is convince the person that you're good enough to take their project on, that you have the skills, that you have the knowledge, that you can provide the value that you say you're going to provide. It's a concern, right? If you go to somebody with 2 or 3 item portfolio, there is a concern that person may not be able to deliver. So I would get into these sales calls and say, well, I've done this for HelloSign. It's similar to what you're asking for. I've done this. Here, look at this thing at HelloSign. You're asking for the same thing. So showing them what they want, showing them the value that they're asking for, and also totally name dropping this new client. And when you see that HelloSign site and people go, wow, you developed that? That gives them that confidence because it was really a beautiful site. It was very well built, and it's a reputable name.
Right. So would you saying that, would you say that mentioning your past work to clients, like you said, because I remember I watched your 5 steps to a Webflow sale episode, and you mentioned about telling a story. So would you say that it is the most impactful way of kind of reducing that BS meter when you're on a call with the client?
It can be part of the story. I like to think of that story as telling the lead how you can solve their problems. The story is not, I worked on HelloSign. The story is,
Right.
I worked on HelloSign and it has a similar feature set to what you're looking for. We can do this. I can do the same thing. I've done it. And that could be anything from neat and organized spacing. That can be a CMS that does something specific. That could be an SEO page. That could be SaaS design, implementing SaaS design. It could be anything. People come with all different types of requests. So yeah, the story is, I can solve your problem. I'm good at solving your problem. And here's the proof of how I've solved similar problems.
Right.
Cool.
And
I think
I was like
yeah.
this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. It's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, was that like kind of the start of like that snowball effect? Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Cool. And I think now I want to like sort of focus more on what Finsweet does for the community, which I think is slowly becoming, from what I can see, is becoming the major part of Finsweet. Like everyone knows Finsweet for the stuff that they do and like all the community stuff that you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always curious. I always had this question. It's like, now if anyone sort of does it, it's like, yeah, we sort of see you guys do it and we're sort of like trying to copy it. But when you first did it, how do you come up with this idea of like trying to focus with the community? Because I don't think any industry or any sort of company does that in the very early stage itself, or even now, to be fair.
It was, I won't say it's more difficult. I'll say people were a lot less accepting earlier in the Webflow community, less accepting of the type of content that we do. People love content, but we were doing technical content, code content on this very no-code designer platform. And 6 years ago, people didn't want to write code in Webflow. It was kind of looked down upon a little bit. Not bad. You're not a bad person, but if you have a whole bunch of code in your site, that means you're not using Webflow correctly. But now we see that's not the case. Big companies have technical requirements. If they're going to use Webflow, they need this feature. So it's a requirement. So when I was releasing this early technical content, I knew it was needed because I was working with companies that needed these solutions, like HelloSign, right? We talked about how there were technical solutions needed. So as we were creating these solutions for HelloSign, we generalized them, released them as hacks. That was our first content series. And not many people enjoyed it. Some people did, but it had, I mean, each video had under 100 views for months. So yeah, it was a tough journey early on, but I knew it was the right path because I knew people need this. Even if you don't like code, you need it. You can't, if you want to get to a certain level, if you want to make websites at a certain level, you need a baseline understanding of this. So that was the path early on.
And following that was the Finsweet library, that comes after Hacks, isn't it?
Yes, right. Hacks was the first major one. We did a couple of other cool things in between there, but you're right. The big one was the CMS library.
Right. And was there a thought of sort of charging for that? Because it does what JetBoost does as well, but they charge for it. Was it like a conscious decision to keep it free for the community, or?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And
there was never any thought of charging for that.
Yeah, I'm curious, like why? Because I guess what most companies would do is like, oh, they have a tool or a product is always, oh, let's make it something that they can pay for, right? So was that like I'm just curious, like why wasn't it that instead of like let's keep it free?
Sure. Well, a few reasons. Number one, I was not able to 100% confirm that everything would work perfectly, that everything would work really well.
Right.
I think CMS library was developed to work, and I think there were a lot of great use cases for it, but it really failed in some other use cases. And there were very specific situations where you could use it and you could not use it. So that alone was, how do I charge for this? Right? Nobody wants to pay for something, and it just works for these use cases, and you can't use it for this use case. It just seemed risky to even try to do something like that. Also, I didn't even know how to implement that. Remember, I'm just learning the web industry, right? I'm a few years in now. I know nothing about products. I know nothing about charging for them, creating them. This was the very first introduction to this world for me. So I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't interested in doing it, but I also didn't know how. Now, that has changed. CMS Library was a huge learning experience. Attributes is now the rebuild of that. And now we understand how and why we can charge for things.
Yeah, because what would have happened is that would probably taken over like the whole focus if you start charging for it, because paying customers on like a monthly basis is probably a nightmare to deal with, especially when you're trying to grow.
Yeah. And support, right?
Yeah.
Support. We didn't start with support immediately. I was helping to support people. That didn't work it didn't work for very long. We had to hire somebody, and it's just a lot. When you start taking money from people, there is a certain expectation that there will be something in return. And I always want to make sure if I'm taking your money, I will give you that full value in return. And I didn't have that confidence in CMS Library.
Right. That's something that we learn as well.
Yeah. So Joe, I wanted to ask you, I think Vim, you mentioned this, like, you know, anyone who does community right now, it's like, yeah, you guys are just not copying, but yeah, you know, you learned to do that from Finsweet, just like us, right? You know, I'm gonna be totally honest. We started this podcast because we've seen like the impact of how effing growth had on us, like how it helped us. So like, you know what, let's try to, you know, have a little twist on that, try to, you know, target more beginners. And yeah, so it's like how you know, Finsweet differentiated you know, yourself in that kind of sense of community. You know, nobody else is like Finsweet. But then, for example, let's say, you know, anybody else who has their own agency, how would you tell them to differentiate themselves? Because it feels like that everything is kind of taken up, you know. For example, I love this community stuff, but then I can't really differentiate myself from it. I can't really, you know, start doing this community stuff and say that I'm unique when it's kind of not, if that makes sense. So how would you recommend people to be unique in this space that seems like, you know, everything is taken up?
Well, I think there's always an opportunity to be unique. I don't care how saturated the market appears to be. I don't care how many people are in the community. I don't care how many different talk shows there are. I think there's always a chance to bring originality to the table. I think almost every instance. So let's say instead of having a more generalized talk show, you two could be the experts in analytics. Like if anybody is thinking Webflow and analytics, here we have 60 episodes of analytics. Like we're the pros, we're the best. We want Finsweet to be that for technical and for growth, just agency business growth. But there's so many of these other topics around that I don't think is saturated at all. We have SEO type topics, analytics topics, integrations. We have Webflow CMS masters, right? You can who's the Webflow CMS master right now? Nobody.
Yeah.
You can shine in literally any vertical in this industry. It's absolutely possible. You just have to focus on it. And that's why we're putting our focus on technical and business growth.
Right. Yeah. Now you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was pretty obvious.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. So Joe, I really want to know, like, because Finsweet has, you know, you guys have done a lot of stuff. You know, it seems like Finsweet is like the gift that keeps on giving, right? First, you came out with the hacks, which helped a lot. in the CMS
Still
library.
does.
Now you're doing attributes and all that stuff, right? So it's like, what would you say out of all of that, you know, in your, you can say your business life, what would you say is the most, your proudest achievement?
I don't know if I can put a product name on that. The proudest achievement.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a product name, but it
Specific
could be
product.
anything,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I would say our current release. I'll answer in the product context. I'm not going to name a specific product. One product. I'll say it's been a really great turning point releasing client first and attributes, because CMS library was a little broken. We release attributes, and yeah, I would be comfortable taking money for this. It's really damn good. And it's just so refreshing to know, hey, our product on the market here works really well and people find incredible value for it. So this is very assuring. Client first, we've heard some amazing comments about it that have also given me this sense of real thankfulness. This comes from hacks. This came from CMS library, people thanking for little things, and great, that's great. But client first, people have shared comments about how they were able to add people to their agency quickly because the naming convention was all the same. So somebody was able to start the next day. Somebody told me that their agency would not exist if it weren't for client first, not specifically for Finsweet, but client first, that the naming convention has unlocked this whole world of new thought for them. So these two things, now that we've released them, I would say this is what I'm really proud of in this products context, that we've gone from this kind of works, this is good, to this is really, really good. We're really confident in giving this to you.
All right. And
Yeah,
you
and
know,
the thing
that's
is,
actually really interesting because it's like, you know, I was expecting something like, you know, yeah, you know, I'm proud of, you know, this client that I got in is a very big name, but everything that you mentioned is all with the community. And I think that kind of shows that the thing that you value intrinsically is the community. What do you think drives that?
The great team that we have at Finsweet. So yeah, I care about the community, but more important than the community is the Finsweet team. I answered that last one in the context of products. We were talking about products, but if I were to answer that question just in general, what am I most excited about and thankful for and proud of in all of Finsweet? It's the amount of people that we have on the team and how far they have grown. We have some unbelievable stories here at Finsweet, people that have came from literally nothing, no knowledge, or about to go homeless, and they joined Finsweet and now they are superstars here. So this is not a one-time occurrence or a two-time occurrence. This is like half the team, starting from minimal to no knowledge, coming up to superstar level. So this is definitely what I am most proud of, being the leader that helps foster that growth internally.
yeah, would you, because our follow-up question to that was, what would you be proud of? Like, what's your proudest achievement outside of work? But I think this sort of counts in that as well, because it helped people and like change lives and careers and stuff like that. So do you have anything else like besides? I can't imagine anything topping that.
Accomplishment? I don't know if this counts as accomplishment, but I guess outside of work, it would be marrying my wife. I'm so happy that I came to Mexico, met my wife, married my wife, and now I'm here in Mexico. And I see that as kind of an accomplishment in a sense that I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm just happy outside of work. You know, I can be in work and be happy, and I can be outside of work and also be happy. So that would be the non-work accomplishment.
Cool. And I think what was the other question we had? It was something similar to this, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was like, it's kind of similar to the previous one, but it's a bit different. So what would you say is the most impactful thing that you've done to, you know, positively impact, you know, your business that you've done in Finsweet? If you could like pinpoint one thing that you would say. Is it like
can't
hiring
pinpoint one
or
thing.
product?
No, I can't pinpoint one thing. There's too many things happening. There's too many good moves, positive moves to pinpoint one thing that would represent the success. Yeah.
Right. So would you say it's like a combination of everything? That is.
Yeah,
Well,
it's how we approach our team internally. It's how we approach our products. It's how we approach giving those products to the community. It's about how we approach our agency work and the clients that we work with. All of these kind of general. I know that's a very general answer, but yeah, I can't pick one of those out and say this is the golden ticket.
right.
Cool. And I think one last question is, what books have you read that sort of change your work or your life, if you have any?
I don't read.
Right.
I don't really like reading. There was a period of my life where I did read, but historically I really don't like reading. And that period of my life was I graduated college and then working up until the web stuff. So college to web stuff, that was maybe 3 years, 4 years. I really got into business books and I really enjoyed them. But I just stopped reading and I realized I didn't miss it. When I was younger, I hated reading. There was all these fictional novels that had to be read for school, and I literally never read one of them. I just couldn't. So yeah, I just don't read now. I find so much more value in just doing it myself, learning. You know, maybe I'm not taking somebody else's great idea or somebody else's mindset, but I feel comfortable following my own mindset, thinking I'm here right now. What can I do right now? What changes can I make? What people can I put in certain positions to make the most impact in 2 to 3 months? And I don't pull that inspiration from books.
Oh, interesting.
You know, it's funny because before the podcast, me and Vim were like preparing questions, and Vim, you know, because I think Vim is into books and stuff. So
no, I want to get into books. Yeah, because
oh right, I see. And then I said like just as a joke, oh, I don't think Joe reads. It doesn't look like it, but it turned out to be true. But
no, it's because I always see a lot of people sort of like saying reading sort of changes their life, or they learn things that otherwise they don't. So I'm like sort of trying to get myself to read, and it's always nicer to read something people recommend. So I always ask this question to anyone that I get to talk to. But the funny thing is I never end up reading those books. Like I read like the first couple of chapters and I just don't finish it.
Yeah, you know, everybody learns in different ways. Nothing against reading. I am honestly very happy for people that read books and find incredible value in those books. Keep reading. Good. But I think some people maybe they don't like consuming data, consuming information in that way through text. Maybe they're more visual learners, or they're more trial and error learners. And that is just me. I want to trial and error, and I want to understand what the trial was. I want to understand what the error was. And I don't think you get that from reading about other people's trials and errors. I think you have to experience that to really wholefully understand what that means. Yeah,
and I think podcasts have been something that sort of bridges both, because now I'm starting to listen to like nothing related to Webflow but it's like more in the creator economy and like other stuff, and you can sort of relate what they're trying to say to what we're trying to do in this industry as well. So I think podcasts have been sort of replacing books.
Yeah. I don't like podcasts either. I don't know. I can't get through them. I'll listen to like 5 minutes and I'll say this. I can't focus on this. I want to focus on something else. I have great focus, but when I find that I can't focus on something, that means I don't want to do it. So I stop doing it.
Yeah. Because usually like podcasts, I prefer to listen to people. They have personalities that you can sort of relate to, and they bring in guests, that sort of podcast. But when I try to force myself to listen to a certain topic, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Totally.
Cool. I think that was all our questions to be missing.
Yeah, so actually, well, while we were talking, I actually had another question, Joe.
Yeah.
I think we asked this question to Dan from Relium as well. It's if you were to start over, right? What would you have done differently?
Start over. What would I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
Well, starting totally from scratch, and I have none of my knowledge, right? I'm starting,
Yeah.
I'm starting from zero without anything. Okay.
Okay.
Well, the first thing I do is I would start learning Webflow immediately, and I would focus on the development side. I would be aware of the design side, but I wouldn't focus as much on it. I was trying to get really into design early in the business. And yeah, that was good for getting started. I think there was some goodness to that. But if I focused on JavaScript from the beginning and the more technical side from the beginning, I could be twice as good on the technical side and the code side as I am now. That would be very powerful. So I feel like I lost a little bit of time worrying about design when really that's not where my heart lies. So that's number one. Number two, I would be a little bit more careful about the types of platforms that I pick. So, collecting payments. We were collecting payments first as check and then PayPal. And
Same.
this is not a scalable solution. I kind of wish like more of those freelancer platforms like a Bonsai was available. And if that was available, that would have been an awesome tool to get started with. And like that, this is the tool that I can scale at least 3 or 4 years in. PayPal was done after 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, picking the right tools, picking the right organization tools, these things I really didn't think about at all. I just kind of worked. And what else? What else am I doing? I'm not delaying on content. I delayed 2 or 3 years before making the first piece of content. Hacks. Those were the first videos. And I was just a little bit scared to release them. First, because I didn't really know the content very well. This was new content. I relied on other people to help me prepare that content. And I should have just jumped into it. And if the content was wrong and I realized that in the future, I could delete the videos. But I just kind of held back and I waited a little too long for that. So those would be the 3 big things. Get more technical, pick the right tools to start with, and start recording content, start doing videos, start writing clonables, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be videos, but start with that content.
Right. And I think that brought like one last question is, do you have any mistakes that you wish you didn't make in Finsweet? Or
Mistakes.
Or like lessons you've learned, perhaps.
Yeah.
Well,
like major one.
Yeah, I'd say how to hire people. Hiring people is much easier now. We have the brand name, people know us, people want to join us. But before, you have to go out and find people. You have to convince them to work with you. And you can spend a lot of time onboarding somebody and a lot of resources working with them only to find out that they're not as good as they claim to be. They're not handling the project correctly. And there were a lot of instances of this. No hurt clients. I always, picked up the project afterwards or put somebody more qualified on the project afterwards. But it hurt internally. It feels terrible to pay somebody some amount of money. They work on a client project and they can't even finish it, and then they disappear. It happened a lot. So yeah, that's a skill that I learned over years. So it's not that I regret bringing those people on, but I think that was something that constantly was difficult and hurt Finsweet, and something that, just takes time to understand and learn.
Yeah.
And you can't learn that from a book. Let's get back to this book. I don't think you can learn about hiring people from a book. I can't imagine doing that.
That's true.
You have to speak to somebody. You have to experience their tone, experience how they handle themselves, experience where they went wrong, where you went wrong, These are all real life occurrences that I think are best experienced in real life. So that's a great example.
Yeah, funny because I had a book about hiring and I didn't finish it. So I was like, what are you trying to tell me? Because a lot of it was just stuff I couldn't relate to. Like I was like, yeah, but
Right.
what are you trying to tell me? Like it just doesn't,
Yeah.
I couldn't just put an experience on what I'm trying to read. But once you experience it and then you read it, you're like, that beats the point of reading it then because you already
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
Right. And that's a great point. The use case, maybe the book on hiring is great. Maybe this
Yeah.
person really is a great person. They have great information, but how relatable is it to you?
Yeah.
You may read
Mhm.
300 pages of a book and maybe only 50 of those pages relate to your situation. If somebody's writing about how they took their seed investment and how they're on their Series A, and after their Series A, they hired a few people, that doesn't relate to me at all. I can't even, that doesn't mean anything to me because we don't have the money to do that. We don't have the resources to just, grow a department. It's one by one. Every hire is difficult. Every hire is a hit on the cash flow, and it's manageable, but it's not, we don't have an investment. And a lot of the books that are written are about companies that are funded, which is fine, but that's not our path. So how do I get the right information from that book?
Yeah, and I think it was like very similar with me when I was learning, how to, grow an agency and whatnot. Because if you search on YouTube how to grow an agency, it's all like either website design or like SMMA agencies. And I tried to learn from those videos, but they weren't the same, right? Which is why when I, came across Finsweet and like Webflow specific content creators, that as soon as I, came across them and started watching them, that is when like my whole business changed because I could relate to them so much. The lessons they gave and taught was specific to Webflow. And, I used to watch like website design agency videos and they said, oh, do outreach and cold calling. But then I tried that and it didn't work. But then every single Webflow content creator I watch, not all of them say just don't do outreach. And and I can relate to what you said, Joe, a lot.
Yeah. Nice. That's great.
Cool. Right.
Awesome. Well, that wraps it up.
That's it. Anything else?
Awesome. So
I think that's it for now. Should bring him in for the 50th episode.
Oh, that'll be good. Yeah. So I'm just going to just do my little outro. We can cut this part out and then we can stop recording and okay.
Sure.
Awesome. All right. 3, 2. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching this episode. This is episode 25 with Joe. Joe, thank you very much for coming on. You dropped a lot of value gems and we do hope you guys enjoyed. So if you did enjoy this episode, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you check out Finsweet if you haven't already in the description. And, leave a comment on what you thought about this episode and any future ideas you have. And also make sure that you subscribe and turn on the bell notification button so you don't miss out on future episodes like this one. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching and see you next week. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.